as we mentioned, this event occurred during Black Philanthropy Month. And we had the question, what is Black Philanthropy Month? And it's a global celebration, concerted and a concerted campaign to elevate African descent giving and funding equity. And so you can go out to blackphilanthropymonth.com, and the About section will tell you more about the history and the leaders that started it. And one of the things that came out of Black Philanthropy Month was Charlotte Gives Black, which was on August 28th. And 828 has a lot of different significance in the Black community. And so you can see here what were the different events that occurred on 828 and really were the catalysts for why we want to support Black giving on that specific date. So, what does Black philanthropy look like? And so we mentioned philanthropy, a lot of people have their own ideas, and we'll go through and kind of hear from our experts their opinions on exactly what Black philanthropy is. But I saw this and I thought it was a wonderful graphic of Black philanthropy can look different. It may be kinship. And so that just may mean, I know an example, my mom and my aunt, two of our posthumous honorees tonight, excellent examples of, taking care of family, and whether that was raising their two younger brothers when their mom passed, whether it was financially, spiritually, emotionally, supporting family members, allowing family members to move in when they were displaced. So when we think of kinship, really it's just looking out for family members. Faith-based giving, even now as the church has declined, church membership, the Black community still has a very strong support of its faith-based giving. And so the churches are responsible. We've seen is everything from civil rights to economic development to spiritual growth. And so faith-based giving is one portion. Resource sharing. You'll hear from our interviewees talk about how they grew up, making sure that what they had, even though it might not have been a lot, that they shared among others. We've definitely seen activism, and we know that even though we're still not equal, that there is a lot, whether it's around racial equity, around environmental justice, that Black philanthropy can be displayed through activism, collective decision making, and finally through mentorship and education. So I've kind of given the groundwork, which led to the questions, and now we're going to see what our interviewees had to say.
Merriam-Webster defines philanthropy as goodwill to fellow members of the human race, an act or gift done or made for humanitarian purposes, an organization distributing or supported by funds set aside for humanitarian purposes. After hearing this, how do you think Black philanthropy is similar or different from the definition I read?
I believe Black philanthropy is similar to the definition around supporting our fellow community members, our brothers and sisters, as we say, because it's like family. Black philanthropy operates in ways that are financial as well as include giving of our time and talent. So I think all to advance our fellow, our brother and sister, our community, whether they're related to us or not. So I think they align to how the Black community is.
Yes, I think Black philanthropy fits within that definition. And at the same time, it's even broader. I define philanthropy, specifically Black philanthropy, as love of what it means to be human. At its core, the word philanthropy means love. When you translate the Greek, it's love of humankind. And when you break it down further, love of what it means to be human is the broadest, most inclusive definition I can think of, and that's the one I choose to embrace.
I've looked at this from two perspectives: the receiver and the giver. And in Black philanthropy, um, you could look at it as there are Black people that are giving and doing, and they're the benefactor, so to speak. And you could look at it as there's Black people that are the receiver.
Mhm.
And as I was thinking about it, I think I thought more along people of color,
Mhm.
because usually when there's somebody reaching out to Black people, it's a group of people. They realize it's the people of color that are suffering.
Mhm.
But yeah, I looked at it those kind of ways, and to me, Black philanthropy is focusing on that group of people that you've indicated down the line is only 2% in giving and receiving.
Mhm.
So that's the way I look at Black philanthropy.
Well, I think it's very similar uh, in that just my background, my family background, helps me to understand what I would not have called Black philanthropy, but just helping your neighbor.
Mhm.
I grew up in a household where my parents, my mother was a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked 2 or 3 jobs to get what we needed to keep a roof over our head. But there were people around us who were in dire straits compared to what we were. And my mother would often, when she cooked for literally half of the neighborhood and she would feed them. And my dad had no problem with that because he grew up as the oldest of 11 children. So he was accustomed to sharing with other people. And in the environment that he grew up with on a farm, it was nothing. If somebody killed hogs today, everybody in the surrounding area got part of the hog. Or if you had corn, and you shared everything. So
Mhm.
Black philanthropy for me is sharing with those who need when you have it to share.
Mhm. Yep, I agree.
So,
Many people think of philanthropists as people who make large cash donations. Even now, Black led, Black benefiting U.S. organizations receive less than 2% of all philanthropic dollars. How do you think Black philanthropy has helped fill this void?
Oh my goodness. Well, as a graduate of an HBCU, and it's an all-female HBCU, uh, what we give is what we have to give. We give money, yes, but also we volunteer hours. And I
Mhm.
think that is oftentimes of more value in Black philanthropy because we have more hours oftentimes than we have monies to share. But the monies that we share, we give with open hearts and generosity. But the hours that we give, we can encourage others who may not even consider it being philanthropic to assist us in doing things on our college and university campuses and other Black organizations, faith-based in church. You know full well
Mhm.
in the church where we are, we do a lot of community-based activities, collecting food for people who might not have food, even going to other countries doing mission projects, going to other parts of the United States doing mission projects. We know every time there's a flood, especially on the East Coast or a hurricane comes through, that something is going to happen in the church where we serve to go and help those individuals, be it monetarily, physically, helping them clean up the area where they're living, or taking food and health and hygiene items.
Yeah.
So I think we're the epitome of it on the low side, but definitely the epitome of it.
Right. I think it's vital. In fact, many of those nonprofits serving our communities are examples of Black philanthropy. People who give more than money and choose to dedicate their lives to a specific cause, an issue, an organization. and give not only money, but their time, their talent, their wisdom, and leverage the assets that they have to address concerns in our community and to express their love for humankind.
But one thing that just popped in my mind is I think one thing people need to realize is that it's not just the big gifts, it's the small gifts. Sometimes people don't give because they say, they can't use my $5 or my $20, so they don't give.
Right.
But if you give $20 on a regular, especially on a regular basis, the person receiving that is so happy. They can put it in their budget. There's never a too small of amount.
Yes.
So that's one thing that just popped in my head. The other thing is that in America, people of color are looked at in differently. This is my perspective, differently than people of color around the world. For some reason, in America, it's okay to give to people of color around the world, whether it's Africa, India, in any other place. But here, when you talk about giving, we become those people that only want a handout. So we don't want to give,
Right.
So we need to change that perspective. We need to realize that there are Black people, people of color, that are just as, God, I hate that word needy, but they have needs just like everybody else around the world that's poor or
Right.
that's lacking
Right.
in something. And so we need to change that perspective for one thing. Focus on the Black people or the people of color that are in need. I guess that's here
Right.
as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Well, just the statistics tells you that Black philanthropy has to be there in order to, because there is a void. And the beauty is that we have statistics that show that as a community, we give a larger percentage of our income than any other demographic group in America. And so so there's two elements here. So one, there's the historic, systemic, leaving out discrimination, undermining of the Black community when it comes to philanthropy, when what the images show, and it appears as if we are the recipients of all this philanthropy, when in fact it's not true when you look at this data and statistic. And what is not shown is how we are suppliers of philanthropy in the many ways that we give, from financial to the collective works that we do in our communities, in the nonprofits and the churches that we volunteer for, to the everyday work we do to our next door neighbor to ensure that whether it's our elders or all of our community is fed and taken care of. So again, this is a telling statistic, and it's worth diving into, and it's worth really being clear where Black community is showing up and being clear where America is not showing up for us.
Yeah, so I just want to echo what we just heard. As the chairman and founder of a Black nonprofit, we definitely see the lack of support from corporate sponsors and large traditional philanthropists. And what we've been able to do has predominantly been from the small donors, whether it's been $25 on a consistent basis, whether it's been donations of things for our auction, whether it's been free services from our chef who's on our board. These gifts have enabled us to help others. And so I definitely feel the void. And I am so grateful to the Black philanthropists. And that's one reason we wanted to do this, to highlight and to encourage others that you don't have to be, a multi-million dollar person with loads of money in the bank in order to help. And so whether it's your time, talent, or treasure, that all of us can come together to help fill this void.
Okay. Well, thank you for those questions so far.
Okay, so moving on to the next.
Yes, I would say so.